What's cracking? Welcome to Griffin and Bass. He's Griffin, I'm Bass. Before we get into everything regarding the Michigan State Spartans and the Washington Huskies, the Michigan Wolverines and the UConn Huskies, and the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders, gotta remind you guys to like and subscribe everywhere you can find us. That'd be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We got full episodes as well on YouTube and DetroitSportsNation.com. And welcome to our third installment of Small Business Friday. Today's spotlight is on Yell Sweets, a family-owned bakery that values quality over quantity, with every bite reflecting the time, dedication, and love that goes into each item they make. Specializing in cakes and cupcakes with over 70 different flavors, ranging from your standards like German chocolate and peanut butter cup to outrageous sensations like Keebler Helpler and Toffee-tastic. Yell Sweets has been baking the goods since 2010. Take a trip down to their shop at 14142 Lakeside Boulevard North in Shelby Township, or visit their website at www.yellsweets.com. That's www.yellsweets.com. Right,
Sweets.
You're right. I looked it up, man. I'm about to be ordering. I'm gonna order a big fat delivery. My wife gonna get all mad. All right. So we got some. We have two college games. One of them's big. One of them's not. We'll start with the not, because I don't think anybody's expecting the UConn Huskies to upset the Michigan Wolverines. The number 4 Wolverines hosting the Huskies. Remember, they don't leave Ann Arbor at all in the first month of the college football season, and that'll be on at noon on ABC. Michigan is a 47.5-point favorite. The UConn Huskies, for whatever that's worth, is 2-1 against the spread and 8-4 against the spread in their last 12 games. Ryan, the Wolverines made their decision at quarterback thanks to the play last week by J.J. McCarthy against Hawaii. He will be the starter going forward for the Wolverines, and they have another scrimmage, another warm-up before the Big Ten Conference schedule starts against the UConn Huskies, who have had a hard time even keeping their program, let alone winning football games.
Yeah, and it'll be more of the same from what we've seen from Michigan these first 2 weeks. They're going to dominate UConn like they dominated Hawaii, like they dominated Colorado State. And that's kind of what it's going to be. You're not going to see a whole lot. You're not going to learn anything about Michigan that you didn't already know. You know, J.J. McCarthy's probably going to throw the ball around all over the field, and then when Michigan feels like they want to run it, they'll probably get 6.5 yards a carry at minimum. So you just kind of come out of this game hoping that nobody gets hurt, really, because you're not going to be in any danger of losing this game at all. You know, it'll probably be another game where it's 21-0 after the first quarter. UConn, again, is a really bad team. And I know other teams play bad teams, but Michigan has played like the 2 worst teams in the country, and then UConn's probably like top 10, top 15 worst. So if you're looking to learn something, you're not going to. Everybody's going to look good. Michigan might get a shutout that they haven't got this year. So that's actually something that I think I would expect to see from the Michigan defense. I wouldn't expect a shutout, but I would expect them to really try to get a shutout. I know last week against Hawaii, they took their starters out after they were up 42-0. I think Hawaii ended up scoring 17 points or something. And it was all in garbage time, all against guys who are backups and walk-ons and things like that. So could I see a scenario where Michigan keeps their defense in a little bit longer? Maybe some of the premier guys, maybe just some of the 2 deep, so they can try and preserve that shutout? Yeah, because the shutout's obviously going to be way harder in Big Ten play when they start next week. I guess that's the only really point of pride for Michigan right now, though. Otherwise, this game's going to be just a laugher.
Man just lost his starting spot, and you're already calling Cade garbage and second starter and all that stuff, second squad, third squad. No, yeah.
Bad against Hawaii.
Yeah, he
really bad.
He did not look good against Hawaii. Michigan in general look great. They've outscored their opponents 107-17 so far. The Huskies, they're not good. Their one win came against FCS Central Connecticut. They lost to Utah State 31-20 in week 0, and then got blowed out at home by Syracuse 48-14. The defense has been awful. And Michigan's averaging over 50 points a game, so expect a lot from Michigan. Like Hawaii, one of the worst in total defense, 101 right now to be exact. They allow over 410 yards per game, and they let over 250 of that through the air. Where the Huskies could make some noise is that they have a bit of a running game. Their main ball carrier, Nathan Carter, he's got 384 yards on the year so far through 3 games. That's over 100 plus per game. He's averaging over 6 per carry. Again, talk about who they played. Utah State, not good this year. Utah State's been good in the past, not this year. FCS school, Central Connecticut, don't even know them. I'm going to guess they're not good. And Syracuse, also not expected to be a great football team, but for whatever it's worth, PFF ranks the Huskies the 11th in the country as far as rushing attack is concerned, and their run blocking is 13th best in the country. Now, again, who have they played? Now, they're going up against a Michigan defense, but if you're someone like me that is looking for a reason to bet this game, and you're not looking so much at the spread, 47.5 points is a ridiculous spread. But the over-under is around 60, which means either Michigan's going to completely dominate the whole time and do a shutout, or the Huskies have to pull some weight if Michigan scores 50. The Huskies got to get around 10. Can they do it with a running attack that's showing that they're competent at least in running the ball? Maybe there's a chance that the Huskies can score a touchdown, kick another field goal. They put up 10 points on the board, and now Michigan doesn't have to put up as many to get to the over. So if you're looking for a bet, I think the over-under is the smarter bet, whichever side of that you want to go on. I don't want to touch a 48-point spread, me personally. But with a rushing attack that is, you got a running back averaging over 6 a carry, a run blocking scheme that's top 15 in the country as of right now, maybe they get some yards on the ground, and maybe they do their part, and you can hit the over on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't know about that because Michigan, they didn't give up 17. They gave up 10 points to Hawaii. And I think they're still pissed about that. So, I don't know that I expect them to let up like they did against Hawaii and give up 2 scores. So I just don't see it. I don't know that I would touch the over, under, or the spread. Just look at some prop bets, I guess. if you need to bet on this game, that's where I would go.
Yeah, so to counteract, the Wolverines have allowed 111 yards per game on the ground so far this year. They're third best run defense so far, according to PFF. And the quarterback side for UConn, you got a backup quarterback, true freshman, Zion Turner. He's thrown 3 picks already this year. He's completed just about 57% of his passes. Wait, that's Peyton. Those are Peyton Thorne numbers too, I think, actually. But But yeah, so Zion, not the Zion that we know from the NBA. Zion Turner, not exactly setting the world on fire. Their passing attack is not good. They have 8 turnovers through 3 games, and so that's where Michigan should look to feast, because Michigan doesn't have that many turnovers so far through the year, despite the bad competition they've played. They haven't forced that many turnovers. They've gotten their hands on some balls, they've knocked some away, but they haven't come away with it themselves. And if you're looking for an area to improve upon for the Wolverine defense, maybe that's something you want to spotlight and focus on, is can they get some of these turnovers to get the ball back, because they're going to need this later on in the year, obviously, when the competition gets a lot harder than it is to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, you'd obviously like to force some turnovers, but we've seen some lucky turnovers. I know we're about to talk about Michigan State in a second, but there was a couple of those fumbles where, you forced the fumble, but it also just kind of seemed like they dropped the ball. And Michigan State picked up, 4 of the 5 that they dropped, and now all of a sudden their turnover margin looks real good, because you're like, oh my God, look at that. They got 4 turnovers in one game. And, for Michigan, turnovers are hype, and they probably provide a little bit more momentum. But if Michigan can continue to get 3 and outs, that's just as good, as a turnover. If they're just continually going to be punting, and then Michigan has a pretty good return game there with A.J. Henning returning their kicks. So it's certainly beneficial, always, turnovers are. But with Michigan, if their defense is able to force a lot of 3 and outs, then you don't need to intercept the pass, because you're going to get the ball back probably in pretty good field position anyway, because I don't see UConn being able to move the ball so much.
No, I don't either. Their ground game's the only chance they really have, and Michigan's run defense is pretty solid as well. For Michigan on the ground, Donovan Edwards is working through something. He left the Hawaii game with an injury. He hasn't really done much this week, so it looks like the Wolverines are going to be without their second running back behind Blake Corum. For whatever that's worth, again, no one is expecting UConn to even be in this game. I don't even know if Husky fans are expecting UConn to be in this game. So we're not expecting anything like that, but for whatever it's worth, what you're looking for as far as betting sides, Michigan's running attack is not at full strength. Again, for whatever that's worth. But I don't think either one of us is worried about that. I don't want to touch this spread as far as actual betting is concerned, but for the sake of our show, Ryan, 47.5 points, Michigan covering it or UConn getting inside of it?
I'll give it to UConn. That's a lot of points.
All right, just for argument's sake, I'll pick the Michigan side. Let's hit some over-unders before we move on to the Michigan State Spartans, who are in an actual football game this weekend. So over-under, J.J. McCarthy, 3.5 touchdowns. Total.
Under.
Not just through the air, just total.
Under. Oh, yeah, still under. I'll put him at 3.
Put him at 3? I think that's a smart bet as well. 240 passing yards.
Ooh, under. I think they'll still let Cade play, and if not Cade, Bowman will get in there.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes this so hard. Like, if he played the full game, I think it's over. But I don't know if he's going to get much more than a first half in, so I'll go with the under. 52 rushing yards for JJ. I don't know where I got the 2 from.
I'll go over. I'll go over. I think he'll pop a couple for, 15, 20 yards.
All right, Blake Corum,
then, yeah.
1.5 touchdowns.
What about you? You didn't answer that one.
Oh, my bad. Over. Yeah, I think he'll break a few as well. So Corum, 1.5 touchdowns and 109 yards rushing.
Over, and I don't think he's really had that big game yet, so I'll give him over on both of these.
Yeah, Michigan
Especially
loves
if
to.
Edwards is hurt.
I mean, literally last week there were 10 different ball carriers for Michigan, which obviously hurts Corum's overall numbers. I think we're going to see more of that as they continue to work in the backups, because this is the perfect time to do it. You're not in danger of losing this football game, and injuries happen. You got to keep your backups ready for next man up. So I'm going to say under 109 yards. He only got 1 touchdown last week. Could it happen to him again? I'm going to say over for the 1.5 touchdowns. I think he'll get 2 of them. All right, so let's get to our Michigan State Spartans, who have to travel across the country and take on the Washington Huskies, who are also 2-0. Michigan State number 11 in the country as of right now. The Huskies are 3.5-point favorites at home. This game will be on ABC as well at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. This is the first game for the Spartans at Husky Stadium since 1970. Been a long time since the Michigan State Spartans have traveled to Seattle to take on Washington. I think the last time they actually faced Washington was 1997 in the Aloha Bowl. I was at that game. I got a jersey sitting right over there to prove it. It's cheap as hell and colorful, and it don't fit me no more. It's the same year, actually, that Michigan faced Washington State in the Rose Bowl, which is just kind of a random occurrence where Michigan State and Washington went at it. Michigan and Washington State went at it. Spartans, 3.5-point underdogs, even though they are a ranked team and Washington is not. Ryan, how you feel about that chip on your shoulder if you a Spartan going into this game?
I feel pretty disrespected. So Washington hasn't beat an out-of-conference ranked team at home since 2001. And I guess they have one of those every year? No, probably not. But that's still a very long time to not be able to take down somebody that's not in the Pac-10, Pac-12, in your own stadium. For Michigan State, I understand where the concerns are. It doesn't sound like Jaden Reed is going to play in this game, which is obviously a big, kind of hit to Michigan State's offense. Because when you look at Peyton Thorne and the struggles that we've talked about, and it seems like everybody's talked about, he's good when he's throwing to anybody that's not Keon Coleman. He's like, honest to God, like 80%, 22 of 28, when he's throwing to every receiver, tight end, running back, or whoever that isn't Keon Coleman. And then when he's targeting Keon, I think he's 6 of 17 or something. So like 35%. Really not good. And Reed is one of those receivers who is not Keon Coleman, who Peyton Thorne has had success to throwing the ball this year. And it hurts because not only is he a great receiver, he's a great punt returner as well and kick returner. So he could flip the game in that way. Even if he doesn't have 3 catches for 60 yards or something, he can still flip the game on a big kick return, a big punt return, whatever it is. And him not being there, you could make a pretty easy argument that he's Michigan State's best player. And I think that's what they're factoring in. Also, just historically, Big Ten teams, when they go out to the West Coast and they play a Pac-12 school, it usually doesn't go well. They played at night. Michigan State played Arizona State a few years ago. Didn't go well back when they played Cal in the early 2010s, maybe late 2000s. Didn't go well either. They lost that game too. So it's I can understand why Washington would potentially be favored. I still think Michigan State should be favored. I think they're a better team than Washington is, but I don't think it's a slam dunk win either.
Yeah, this one's tough. This is not the Washington team that came into Ann Arbor last year and got absolutely embarrassed. This team is better than that in the quarterback and head coach combo alone. So the quarterback, Michigan State Spartans and Big Ten fans in general should know well. Michael Penix Jr., Indiana quarterback, was there for all 4 years, got injured every single year. Didn't play against Michigan State last year. That was the backup Jack Tuttle. But he played against Michigan State in 2020. He played against Michigan State in 2019. In both those years, he did pretty damn well against the Spartan defense. Won one and lost one, but he put up numbers. And the Huskies this year are averaging 570 yards of offense and 48 points a game. Again, competition, same as Michigan State through the first 2 games. They played Kent State and FCS Portland State. But Michael Penix Jr. knows the Michigan State defense. It hasn't changed that much since he torched them pretty good 2 years ago. And the Michigan State defense knows Michael Penix Jr. So there's some known here, which can be a problem and also a good thing depending on which way you look at it. He's a mobile quarterback, but he's also a pass-first kind of guy. He's got a good arm, and if he's given time, we are in a lot of trouble. So there's a lot that we know about this team going in because of the quarterback alone and facing that situation before against this guy. Obviously on a different team, but it seems like he's got the Huskies rolling so far this year, and Michigan State's going to have to bring it this Saturday in Seattle to come out with a win, and an upset win at that, obviously, as they are the underdogs in this one, despite being the number 11 team in the country. Again, polls don't matter that much at week 3 or week 4 of the season because no one's really played anybody. There's a couple of games here or there that might have been real, but for the most part, a lot of these teams have been playing the warm-ups to get them ready for the regular season. Michigan State in this one it's a big hill to climb, Ryan.
Yeah, they certainly can't come in and half-ass it. I would disagree that the defense he saw 2 years ago is different than the Michigan State defense now. That was Mel Tucker's first year, coming in obviously with COVID and none of his own players there before Michigan State really hit the transfer portal hard. So I don't think the defense is the same as the one that Penix saw in 2020 when it was a 24-0 Indiana win. With that said, the defense is can still be pretty shaky. You, of course, don't have Darius Snow. Doesn't sound like you're going to have Xavier Henderson for this game. And to me, it's going to come down to, can Michigan State pressure Penix when he's in the pocket and make him make him a little bit more skittish and not want to throw the ball so much, because he is, he's a guy who, he doesn't run a lot, right? In their last game against Portland State, he didn't run at all, and then in the first game with Kent State, he has 4 rushes attributed to him, but as we know, sacks count as rushes against the quarterback. So it could have been 3 designed runs and 1 sack or something. Now, he does have 27 yards, which makes me think they're probably more designed, if as long as run that game was 10 yards. So it's not a guy who moves a lot in the pocket. He can run around, but it's not like you're facing Malik Cunningham or even J.J. McCarthy or somebody like that who is just going to be more of a threat to take off when the pocket breaks down around them. So for me, it's going to be about, can they do really what the Lions couldn't do against Jalen Hurts and keep him in that pocket and just not let him escape. And if they do that, I think Michigan State will be all right. I think Penix will have a little bit of a harder time. I think Michigan State has the front seven to be able to do that. And then with Washington, they did lose a lot on defense. I don't necessarily think they're a good football team, so I would still have Michigan State favored in this game. But there might be a reason why Washington is favored. They're bad last year. I think they're still bad this year, and they lost a lot of their guys on defense. And it's just going to be, for defense, it's going to be, can you keep Michael Penix in the pocket and get pressure on him? And then for the offense, it's going to be, can you take advantage of this, what I still think is a shaky Washington defense, through the air and, through the run game, because I don't think you can be one-dimensional and come out of this game with a win.
I think you hit it right on the head as far as what this game is going to come down to, and that's what I circled as well when I was looking at this game, is that this game is going to come down to Michigan State's defensive line versus Washington's offensive line. And if the defense can get pressure on Penix, Michigan State can easily win this game. And they can win this game by double digits. If they can get pressure, this is a team that leads the nation in sacks right now at 12. Washington's only given up 2. Again, who have you played? But for what it's worth, Washington's given up 2 sacks this year, and that's it. Michigan State has already amassed 12 of them. Washington has not faced anyone like Jacoby Windman, who's got 5.5 sacks already by himself. Stopping the run has been they've looked okay-ish so far this year. Again, haven't played a rushing attack like what Michigan State's going to bring this weekend. And Washington themselves has gained about 5 yards per carry and has scored 7 touchdowns on the grounds. And they have a group of about 5 running backs that they can choose from, depending on who's hot that day. So I agree it's going to come down to what Michigan State's defensive line can do against the Washington offensive line. And if they don't get that pressure and they give Penix time, Michigan State's in a lot of trouble and will lose this game by an easy amount if they allow Penix to pick apart our secondary. So that line has got to get home. The running game has got to be on point, obviously, for Michigan State. And Peyton Thorne needs to get back to what he was doing last year, because what he's doing so far this year is not going to cut it. 58% of his passes, 3 interceptions against 4 touchdowns against 2 MAC opponents. That's not going to cut it. Look, Washington doesn't have a phenomenal defense, but you can't have that as your quarterback going forward. I understand how much we rely on the rushing attack. We're about 230 yards per game on the ground. But if the passing game is not there, I think Michigan State's in real trouble this weekend.
Yeah, probably. Like we said, you can't be one-dimensional with in this game and expect to win. Of course, the environment is going to be unwelcoming, hostile, whatever you want to say, because it's a night game and you are the number 11 team in the country going into Washington, who is 2-0, and if they win this game, they are certainly going to be ranked, and that's going to cause their fans to really come out, I think, and just be excited, be hyped up. Right now, if you look at the schedule, Michigan State is the highest ranked team that Washington's going to play all year. Now, that could change, obviously, with whatever happens. They still have Oregon on the schedule way down the line. But, right now, if you looked at it, Michigan State would be, on paper, the best team that Washington has on their schedule. So I don't even think that there's a possibility that Washington is, looking ahead to Stanford next week when they start their conference play. I think they're all geared up for this game. And I think Michigan State should be too. And if they're not, they are probably going to get, sent home on the bus very unhappy because they came out with a loss. And there's certainly spots to attack the Washington defense. Kent State in week 1 put up 340 yards on Washington, and they had 19 first downs. So I think if Michigan State is able to just control the game, control the tempo a little bit, and work that offense into spots where, then you can be comfortable throwing or running the ball, get in the red zone a bunch, finish with touchdowns, not field goals. Michigan State should be all right. And obviously all the other cliches, right? Take care of the ball, keep the chains moving, all that stuff that's typical to winning football games. But I really think that's what Michigan State needs to do. There's an opportunity to do it with Washington. I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of resistance from the Washington defense. And if the Michigan State offense does feel resistance from the Washington defense, then I think it could be a long night. But I kind of don't expect that to happen. I do think Michigan State will walk out with like a 7 to 10 point victory. Nothing that's like crazy sexy, but it'll get the job done. And it'll at least prove that they are a decent enough team not to, kind of not to fall to it. A little bit less impressive probably than what they did in Miami last year, but I think the circumstances are just different between that game and this game.
All right, well, that answered my question on where you were going with the spread. You were picking Michigan State to flat out win, and they are a 3.5 point underdog, so you are clearly picking Michigan State plus 3.5 as well as the money line. All right, let's get to over-unders. So last time we did this, Peyton Thorne let us down completely. He did not have 275 yards through the air. He did not have 3.5 touchdowns. Berger almost hit the 115-yard mark, which we had for our number. Broussard a little bit over the 70-yard mark. The defense did not get 5.5 sacks. So we're going to rein it in a little bit here on some of these. Thorne, 260 yards passing.
Under.
Okay, Ryan going under. I'm going to hope that this is a coming out game for Thorne, and he does his job through the air and will be a little bit over the 260-yard mark. 2.5 touchdowns total.
Under.
No faith, Ryan. I'm going to go over. I think he'll throw for 2 and scramble for 1. 1.5 interceptions. Both of us going under on that one. All right. Berger and Broussard combined 185 yards and 1.5 touchdowns.
Under on the yards, over on the touchdowns.
All right. I'm going to go over on the touchdowns with you, and I'm going to say that rushing attack continues to dominate, so I'm going to go over. Michael Penix Jr., 285 yards passing.
Under.
I'm hopeful and with you on that one. 2.5 touchdowns.
Under.
Again, I am hopeful and with you on that one. And the defense, 2.5 sacks, 1.5 takeaways. Michigan State's obvious.
I'll go over and over. They'll get 3 picks off of Penix.
All right. Well, I'm going to be optimistic with you as well, and take the overs on both of those. I think we need a big bounce back, and that needs to happen if we are going to win this game outright, which obviously we are both rooting for. All right, time to get to the men who get paid to do this, actually really paid to do this. The Detroit Lions are hosting the Washington Commanders. First time in I don't even know how long the Lions opened the season with back-to-back home games. And it's the first time the Lions have been favored in a matchup in 25 games. The last time Detroit was favored was November 22nd of 2020 when they were favored on the road against the Carolina Panthers, who had P.J. Walker out of the XFL as their quarterback. And the Lions lost 20-0. That ain't going to happen this time. We ain't getting shut out by the Washington Commanders at home. But Ryan, coming off of a hard-fought defeat, it's the nicest way I can put it, the Lions and their fans obviously are looking for an improvement. No longer just being the team that's in games. We need the team that's in games and starts winning some of these games. So give me the breakdown, what you got for Washington and Detroit this Sunday.
So for Washington, Chase Young's not going to play, which is a big break for the Lions offensive line. But with the Lions, Ragnow hasn't practiced. He played last week. So I think they're probably just giving him some rust. I would expect Vaitai to still be out, and then Kramer, the backup for Vaitai, is hurt as well. So the Lions are down another offensive lineman, and they'll have to replace somebody there. I think this will be a way lower scoring game than what the Lions and the Eagles were, but it will be a closer game, from start to finish. I don't think either of these teams is going to get down, 17 points like the Lions were to the Commanders. Carson Wentz is, I think, a worse quarterback than Jalen Hurts. He's just about in that Jared Goff tier to me. And then you have Terry McLaurin and Jeff Okudah. I guess it's possible he's not on McLaurin, but both guys went to Ohio State. So hopefully Okudah knows some of McLaurin's tricks, and if they get matched up, he can he can do something with it, like he did with Devontae Smith last week. And then for the Lions, I expect them to try and do a lot of the same, right? I expect them to try and run the ball and establish the run early, get the ball in DeAndre Swift's hands and get him active, and then you just hope for less mistakes. Last week there was a pick six, there was a couple different drops by the Lions, and those are just things that the Lions really can't have happen if they want to win any of these games. So I expect this game in totality to just be like a grinded out sort of game where we're going to see a lot less fireworks than what we saw last Sunday, but hopefully not as many fireworks still results in a Lions W, and then I think we'll all be fine with that. But how do you see the game playing out?
Well, the big killer that the Eagles had on the Lions, Washington does not. They don't have a mobile quarterback. Carson Wentz is not mobile. He looked great last week, threw 4 touchdowns. First time he's done that since he was wearing an Eagles jersey. They have weapons, and that's where I'm worried. You have Curtis Samuel, McLaurin you talked about, and obviously Antonio Gibson as well. McLaurin's fast, and fast wide receivers have given the Lions fits in the past. And so I'm worried about it's kind of almost like a little bit like the Michigan State Spartans in Washington, where if the pressure is not getting to Wentz and Wentz has time to pick the secondary apart, Lions are in trouble. If Aiden Hutchinson and co. are able to get pressure on Wentz, he's not escaping and running for 15, 20 yards the way that Hurts was doing. So you have that element not really available for Washington. They hit you in different ways. I do think Wentz is a better passer of the ball than Jalen Hurts is. But generally, traditional quarterbacks don't do, unless you are the elite of the elite, they don't do as well against the Lions as mobile quarterbacks do. So that, to me, is what this is going to come down to. Can Amani and Jeff Okudah stay with Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin? What are they going to do about Antonio Gibson, who has a ton of size and speed and pretty good hands as well? He had 7 catches last week for 72 yards, hurting them out of the backfield with those catches against this secondary that I still don't trust. This defense is going to give up points. We knew this coming into the season. We talked about this. Can the offense pace them enough that it doesn't hurt them in the win column when they give up 28 points, 31 points? Can the Lions put up 35 plus? They did it last week against the Eagles, having to come back and do it. And is Goff going to get off to a better start this week? He can't get off to the same start that he got off to last week. That first half was atrocious. He was 3 of his first 10. That's terrible. And a pick 6 that he threw it right to the defense. His own receiver faked him out on the out and up. And that can't happen. Goff has got to be sharper to start the game. The Lions have everything they need to win this game. I think these teams are pretty evenly matched. They just need to put it together.
Yeah, they do need to put it together, and if they do, I think they probably have some more talent than what the Commanders have, especially on offense. And even last week, the Lions' offensive line held up against a good Eagles defensive line. I expect that to happen this week as well. Even without Chase Young, the Commanders have a good defensive line. But if the Lions' offensive line is able to keep them out of the backfield and keep Goff clean, I think in totality the Commanders' defense is worse than what the Eagles is. So Goff should theoretically, right, have an easier time of hitting the spots in the Commanders' defense. Swift probably can't have a much easier time running against the Commanders than he did against the Eagles, but he should still be effective in this game. Not 9 yards of carry effective, but he should be able to kind of do what he needs to do to put the Lions in position to win. And I kind of think that's where it's going to come down from, right? Is they have to erase those little mistakes. The receivers can't be dropping passes. Goff has to hit his spots. And when he does hit them, the receivers, again, like they have to make the play. And then I think the Lions, again, have to go through DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Now, DeAndre Swift hasn't practiced for 2 straight days. He did tell Dave Burkett, the Lions beat reporter, that his ankle injury is nothing to worry about. So I don't think there's any fear of him missing Sunday, and it might just be the Lions trying to load manage him. But that is something to look for with DeAndre Swift, and maybe watch on Sunday if he does seem a little slower, or if Jamal Williams is getting in there maybe a little more often, then it's something that might be able to turn the outcome of the game a little bit. But I think the Lions have a much better chance of beating the Commanders than they did the Eagles.
All right, let's talk rookies for a second in this game, because there's a couple big name ones on each side of the ball for this one. So for the Lions, obviously Aiden Hutchinson. The numbers don't show much for last week for him. It's got to be better. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the man gets his first NFL career sack in this game, and I hope that comes to fruition. On the other side, for Washington, Jahan Dotson, the stud out of Penn State, who had a nice welcome to the NFL last week as he, 3 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns for the rookie right out the gate. And that's a fast, talented receiver against our abysmal secondary. You gotta worry about him in the red zone as well, when Washington gets down there, because that's another weapon that they could use to expose the Lions defense.
Yeah, so with Jahan Dotson, and maybe it's just because I didn't like him so much coming out of college, and I'm still holding on to that, but 2 touchdowns in your debut is obviously a really good debut. But if you just looked at that, 3 catches for 40 yards, and he didn't have the touchdown luck with it, then I think you'd be obviously way less impressed. But, you talked about the Commanders' weapons already, with McLaurin, with Dotson, with Curtis Samuel, and it is a whole heck of a lot of speed that they have there, and it's not something that I think the Lions can take for granted. It's something that's going to put pressure on their defense, even if these guys aren't the best overall wide receivers. Just being able to run right by you, right? Or if you miss one tackle, then they could be off to the races. That puts some extra pressure on the defense. And I like your prediction with Hutchinson. I think I'm there with you, that he'll get a sack and kind of put last week behind him, because I just think he'll work at it, right? He seems like the kind of guy who he knows he didn't play well. He hears people talk about how well that he didn't play. So I think he'll use that to fuel him, and then have a better game this Sunday against the Commanders. So I'm with you there, and that is, that's the test, because I don't think the Commanders are going to beat the Lions by running the ball. I don't think Antonio Gibson's going to go out there and have 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and we're going to be like, oh well, we just couldn't stop him. If they do beat the Lions, it will be because those receivers, got busy, they got open, they were able to create separation away from the Lions defenders, and unfortunately, that is a very weak part of the Lions defense. Pretty much almost like the entire defense is, but going up against speedy receivers does present a unique challenge that Philadelphia necessarily didn't, but even then we saw one receiver kill us all day. And I think the Commanders do have the capability to do that as well.
You think McLaurin could have an A.J. Brown-like day?
I think he can. I really like McLaurin.
I do too. I'm trying to think of which wide receiver would be the one to have that A.J. Brown-like day. I don't think it's Samuel. I think out of the 2 stud wide receivers they have, I think it's McLaurin that would have that kind of day. Obviously, he doesn't have the size that A.J. Brown has, but he's got the speed. He's got great hands. He's very athletic. And I think that could be a big problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. And McLaurin's, far and away their best receiver. So if they were just going to feed one guy, I would expect it to be him. If Jahan Dotson goes out and has a Ricky Anquan Boldin game against the Lions, then I just throw my hands up.
He's on the right team, I think. As far as a team that is at least semi-decent, and they need more wide receivers. McLaurin's been great. I don't know about Samuel, how good he really has been. He's been good at times, but I think Jahan Dotson has a chance to be their legit number 2 wide receiver and start battling McLaurin eventually for that number 1 spot. Not this rookie year, but just he has the talent, I think, to be a very effective wide receiver for years to come, despite your hatred of him.
I do disagree with that. I think it'd be pretty amazing if he ended up being as good as Terry McLaurin is. Another aspect for the Lions, though, and maybe a reason why they're favored, is this is like a must-win game. You know, you can't really go 0-2 and make the playoffs in the NFL. Most of the data that we have on that is through a 16-game season. But through the 17-game season we had last year, none of the 0-2 teams made the playoffs. So for the Lions, it really is like an early season must-win. It's your second home game. I think most of the fan base still likes Dan Campbell, but after last week's onside kick and some of the time management, there's still questions on there. So if the Lions go out and lay another egg and lose and fall to 0-2, lose another home game to a team that's not very good, you could kind of forgive the Eagles' loss because the Eagles are like a popular Super Bowl pick, right? I mean, they're my pick to go to the Super Bowl, but they added all these pieces. People like their offense. They're like, hey, the Eagles, they can come out the NFC East, and they could certainly make a march to the Super Bowl. The Commanders, nobody's saying that about. The Commanders are looked at as one of those bottom-tier teams, you know, kind of along with the Lions. So if the Lions lose that game at home and fall to 0-2, I just think there's a little bit more urgency in the Lions than there probably is in the Commanders, who, you know, it's not like, oh, you can afford to lose one because you kind of can't afford to lose any games in the NFL. But I think the Lions should have a more heightened sense of urgency than the Commanders for sure.
Look at you drinking that blue Kool-Aid, talking playoffs and Detroit Lions. Just
I mean,
play
you
it
can't
into
be
the fan
0-2
base.
and make the playoffs, bro. Like
I mean, you can. It has happened, but it's not a high percentage. That is true. Betting wise for this one, the Lions 2.5-point favorites. The over/under is 48.5. So last week the Commanders beat the Jaguars, and the Commanders put up 28. The Jaguars put up 22. I think the Lions have a much better offense than the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think the Washington's defense is not as good as Philadelphia's, although Philadelphia's defense didn't play great last week, but they're still, I think Washington's defense leaves something to be desired compared to Philadelphia's. I think the over is the absolute play in this one, and I'm going to go with a prediction that Washington covers, the Lions win, they hit the over 31-30.
And you said it was what, 58 was the over-under?
48.
48.
That's a low. I think that's a low number for the offenses that are coming into this game.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's probably a low number because I don't think the defenses are that good either. I was thinking like 34-28-ish Lions, or maybe even like 34-30, and that would obviously clear the over. So I would agree with you. I would think the over is the play in this game. The spread, I have no idea because like I could see the Lions. I mean, you said the Commanders cover. I could see the Lions winning by 2 or 1. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. 31-30.
So I wouldn't touch the spread, but I would take the over.
31-30, and the Lions blocked the game potentially winning field goal as time expires.
All right.
Let's just go crazy with our picks here.
Yeah, but parlay all of that.
There you go. Make a whole bunch of money like I did last weekend. All right.
There you go.
That's going to do it. Thank you for kicking it with us on Griffin and Bass. For Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Bassin. As always, Wu-Tang is for the children. Ryan, go green.
Go white. I beat Matt in fantasy football twice last week.
Damn it. We'll see y'all after the weekend. Peace.
See ya.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.